Hello, everyone, and welcome to Indie Pride's Career Support Series. Welcome to Stand Out Career Fair Prep Tips. I am one of your co-presenters. My name is Rias-Thompson. I'm a career consultant for the School of Liberal Arts at IUPUI, and I am joined with an esteemed colleague.
Hi, I'm Shelly Snider. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I am the Assistant Director of Career Services for the Purdue School of Engineering and Technology at IUPUI.
And we are here to give you some prep tips on the career fair that's coming up Tuesday, October 6th, that is presented by Geico and hosted by Indie Pride for our community to get us employed and to get us into opportunities that are going to take our careers to the next level. So what we'll cover with you today is how to be successful in a virtual career fair, some of the differences between a virtual career fair and a traditional career fair that you may notice, before, during, and after tips, and some resume tips to make sure that you're presenting a strong professional document when you come into these interview settings. Then Shelly is going to go into queer resources, sourcing inclusive companies, and how out are you going to be. We'll finish up the session with questions and answers. Let's get started.
Yes.
Now, I want to start off with how a virtual career fair differs from a traditional career fair so that you get a sense of where you were and where you're coming into. Traditional career fairs typically were housed in large rooms, and there were dozens of recruiters there with tables set up around the room, lots of different things on their tables, trying to get your attention. There's a free pen over here. Come and talk to me, even if I'm not in your career path or your career projection. Virtual career fairs differ because they're more intentional. There's direct communication with you and that company, you and that recruiter. So that way, it's more of an interview setting right off the bat. And it gives you a fast insider track into the position if it's a really great conversation and you both are picking up beneficial pieces that each one of you can add, or it fast tracks you into that second round for interviewing. Whereas before, in a traditional career fair, you would be walking around and trying to gauge the attention away from other participants from that recruiter because there may have been a line. Or, like me, you've made awkward eye contact with the recruiter, and even though it's not a job that you want with a company that you want, you go over and you talk to them because there's no one at their table and you're just that nice of a person. Virtual career fairs, you're able to be more intentional about how you spend your time, which provides more insight into some of your soft skills. Things like problem solving, interpersonal communication, organization, and overall preparedness is easily seen in a virtual setting because if you're having technology issues, if you can't connect to Zoom, your problem solving skills kicks in, and hopefully your communication skills do as well because you're reaching out to that recruiter and saying, hey, I'm experiencing some technical difficulties right now, and you're either rescheduling that for a new time that works for the both of you, and or you're letting them know that you're going to be 1 minute late. But that way, it gives a little bit more to who you are as a person, what they can expect for you as an employee showing up into that job every day. Also ties into home court advantage. A lot of the times you're ushered into these rooms and you're aimlessly walking around for companies that you may be interested in. Here, you have the chance to show a professional amount of your personality. As you can see behind me and Shelly, we both have very nicely decorated, in my opinion, very beautiful and vibrant backgrounds. We're in our home offices. At IUPUI, we've been working from home since about March, so we've had time to really spruce up the place. When you're in a virtual career setting, you're also able to declutter and be intentional about the space that you're welcoming in these employers. So show off your personality. Show off a little bit of who you are. I like to say that my flower panel wall could change any given week depending on what flower is in season or on sale at Michael's. It could be a new flower panel up. Also gives you a little bit of conversation starter so you don't jump right into the interview as soon as you enter into the Zoom room. Now, some tips for before. Know your VIPs. At IUPUI, there are so many acronyms. that we just love adding more. VIPS stands for values, interests, personality, and skills. It is a personal mission of mine to push VIPS on as many people I meet with for career development, because it makes it a lot easier finding a position that you're going to love, finding a career, a company, a title that you can really see yourself growing into and staying and really developing if you know yourself. And knowing yourself is knowing those values, what you value in a position, what you value about yourself, what you value about adding to your career development. What are you interested in? 9 times out of 10, if you're not interested in what that company does or the population they serve, the products they have, you're not going to stay very long because you won't be happy. There's no connection there. Your personality. Do you fit in with this company? Do you fit in with the people that this company employs, the people that they serve? And the skills. Does the skills that you have acquired, match the skills necessary to not only do the job, but do the job well? So once you have that self-discovery and that self-awareness piece engaged and you're there, do your research on the companies that are going to be present. Indy Pride has done a really great job of offering you the list of employers who've signed up. And for those of you who have already RSVP'd and registered, they're emailing you out updated lists of those employers as they grow. From that list, you want to develop a list of questions for the employers that you've identified align with your values, your interests, and your skills. Once you have that question list, you can either break it down into specific questions for those companies, or like Ashley suggested in our first event for this series, have it around the experience that you're going to be coming into. What are their COVID-19 precautions? How have they been engaging and keeping communication up with their workforce during this different and unprecedented time? Next, you want to update your resume. We're going to give you good tips and tricks on how to update your resume and make sure that it is as strong as it can be to make you the top candidate. Next, you want to create or secure a professional space. Not everyone has the luxury of having a home office, and we understand that. However, there are so many different community resources that are available to you where you can secure a professional space, whether that is on a campus for a university or at your local public library. There are spaces that you can rent and reserve for the times that you've signed up to meet with these employers. Make sure that it's a space that you're comfortable in, that you're familiar in, and that you can bring your best, most authentic self to your interviews in. Next, just as Ashley stressed in her session, we are also going to stress this point. Do a technology run through. I believe all of the employers are going to be hosting their sessions through Zoom. So Zoom has an awesome feature for test runs. Get in there, play around, make sure that you're comfortable using that software. Make sure that you know where your connectivity points are, and if you typically are caught up on something or snagged somewhere technologically, make sure that you have that all ironed out before you sit down for your time with the recruiters. Next, I'm going to talk about setting out your interview outfit, and later on in the presentation, I'll have a slide that comes up with a few good amount of images for different outfits that you can have. You don't want to be professional just from the head to the top of your chest or the bottom of your neck. You want to be business casual, business professional the entire way down, from your head to your toes. And lastly, build your confidence. This, paired with knowing your values, interests, personality, and skills, is what's going to make you a dynamite standout candidate. If you do not come into the interview setting, into that Zoom room, that virtual space, confident that you are the best candidate for this position, then you are going to leave with the recruiter thinking they have zero confidence in you to do that job, to fit in with the team, to be able to do what it is that they are interviewing you for. So show up confidently. Some things that I always recommend is doing power poses. Not a lot of people are familiar with those power poses, and I see Shelly shaking her head because she knows power poses like a Jedi mind trick. It tells your body, it tells your mind, I am sitting comfortably. I'm leaning back in my chair. I have my leg crossed over the other, and I'm taking up space. Tricks you into thinking that you're powerful and you're capable and you're confident, even if just 2 seconds before you were unsure. So hold a power pose. for 20 seconds, 30 seconds, a minute if you have the time while you're waiting for that Zoom interview to start. And if you're not familiar with those power poses, do a quick Google search. There are a lot of different ones that are standing, some that are sitting. I'm currently in a power pose right now because even though I am always presenting to students and people of the community for career readiness, you still get a little nervous. And sometimes you just want to have a power pose just very quietly going on in the background. Another tool that you can use to build your confidence before that interview are affirmation statements. I'm an avid believer in affirmation statements and building yourself up as a candidate before. I also am an avid believer in talking to yourself out loud, especially in front of mirrors. I will look at myself before I'm doing something that I think is really big and really scary and it's going to put me into a better position by saying, I am capable. I am the best person for this job. I am confident. I am getting the call back. I am getting the role. Take some time out now. You may be at home laughing. Oh, this is hilarious. She wants me to talk out loud to myself and in front of a mirror, no less. But it really does work and it really does build up that confidence. So going forward, setting up your professional space, you have two different background options. You've got regular background where it's your actual physical space. You want to make sure that it's clutter-free, not too distracting. I will say my flag stays up each and every day, each and every meeting, because it is a part of my identity that I am proud of, and this flag will not come down for anyone. However, I also use my space in a different way. Going into an interview, it is up to you and your discretion of what you feel is distracting as far as how you want to identify yourself. Going into making sure that your face and your surroundings are well lit. Make sure that that light is aimed at your face. A lot of us are at home, so a lot of these interviews will take place there, but try not to sit in front of your window with your back to your window. You want to make sure that that light is aimed at your face so you come through nice and illuminated. And again, I already talked about your professional personality. Use that home court advantage to really show another side of yourself that the recruiter may or may not have had the privilege to get into at a traditional career fair. Now, your virtual background, those are the ones that it's a completely different scene behind you. No one can see your physical space. It's a great tool, a great resource. However, you want to be comfortable with this technology and you want to make sure that it's professional. A lot of the times these images are of a logo or of a boardroom. Those perfectly fine unless it malfunctions. In the case that that virtual background does not stick, you want to make sure that your actual space is cleared out and it is not distracting and there is not 50,000 people behind you. So even if you are using that virtual background, make sure you're in a space that will allow you to still have a great interviewing process if it malfunctions. Going into your resumes, Ladders Inc. did a study that tracked how recruiters looked at resumes. Now, from that study, they gathered that 7.4 seconds was as long as the recruiters needed to see whether or not you were qualified for the position, if you were going to be a good fit for the position, if you had the skills necessary for the position. And they used that information that they gained from eye tracking. So from there, they picked up the top performing resumes had simple layouts. They were clearly marked sections, title headers, everything written in a nice clear font, and the layouts used F and E eye pattern formats. Now I'm going to show you all an image of the F and E formats because I think it's really interesting. And I think it's going to be very useful for you when you're getting together your resume and reconfiguring it to match those jobs that you're going to be applying for. They also had a detailed overview or mission statement at the top of their page. Some of the worst performing resumes were cluttered. There wasn't a clear path for the eye to go down. There's very little white space, and it relied very heavily on keyword stuffing. And what we mean by keyword stuffing is you read a job description and they said that you needed to be proficient in these 10 things. You will be responsible for these 8 things. You've taken those 18 keywords or phrases and put them all onto your resume. Now, some of the time, you don't have all of those skills and all of those characteristics that they're looking for. And that's okay. If you format your resume and you use language that is persuasive and alludes to what you can do because of your experience, you'll get a better response during that 7.4 seconds that the recruiter is using to see whether or not you pass to that next level. Here are the F and E I patterns. So if you notice, the recruiter started at the top of the page and they went across and then they came back down to the left side, looked at the bullet points because that's typically where they're formatted. They're looking at the dates and the titles of your positions, the companies you held those titles with. And then they're merging over into the middle of the page and they're either going over into how long you stayed in that position, looking at the date line, or if they're following that EI pattern, they're at the bottom of the page now and they're going across. And typically at the bottom is where you see that nice skill section. So they're looking at those bite-sized small pieces of information. Now, something that you also may gather from these images is that a lot of the eye fixation is focused on that top half of the page. The information at the top half of your page is crucial. You want to make sure that a lot of the most relatable skills and experiences are there. So what do we suggest? From that study, from working with the students on IUPUI campus and the community at large, what do we suggest? One-page resumes. If you are a professional 10 years plus into your professional career, you email us. Our contact information will be at the end of the presentation, and we can help you decide whether or not you need a one-page or a two-page resume. But for the most part, when you're applying to a job with a tailored resume, you have a solid one page of relevant, valuable experience that directly applies to that position. So one page, 9 times out of 10 is just good enough, just good enough. On that one page, you want to have a header with your contact line. And in that header, you want to have your name. You want to have your name nice and big on that page. It's a professional document about you. So you want to make sure that they know this is all about India Rias-Thompson, all of her most relevant accomplishments, skills, and experiences. Underneath that, you want to have that overview or mission statement, which is why I have no paragraphs unless you're doing one of those. And even within that, you want to do short sentences and be concise. Sell yourself with those skills and what you're looking for as a professional. Going down, you want to have bullet points. I like to stress that bullet points ought to have 3 parts to it. What you did, why you did it, and either who you did it for, if you were reporting directly to someone of a special esteem within your organization, or your results. Don't be afraid to add numerical value. Sometimes you don't have the years of experience that they prefer, but if you're in a position with a high value of the experiences and skills that they're looking for, you can still be just as competitive as a candidate as anyone else. I've already talked about tailoring that job or tailoring that resume to one job in specific. If you're applying for multiple positions, don't use the same resume. Make sure that you're courting that job, courting that recruiter in that position in its own accord. Get that job description next to your resume and make sure that it matches up. Some places that you can build your resume in are Canva, tried and true Microsoft Office. And if you're really tech savvy, you can do almost anything in Photoshop. Now, I will say Canva is one of those resources, and it's canva.com if you're not familiar. It's one of those resources that skews to the creative side, which goes into my next point. Know what a resume for your industry looks like. If you're going into a creative field, you don't want to bring a resume that's strictly black and white. And in this black and white resume, you're talking about how creative you are, how well you do with creating visually appealing content. Show them that in your resume. Make sure that you know what it looks like for your industry so that you can bring out those attributes that are really going to sell you as a top candidate for that position. Pronouns. How important are pronouns in our community? If you are questioning whether or not you ought to put your pronouns on your resume or put your preferred name on your resume, let us set all the rumors to bed. Add your preferred pronouns onto your resume, preferably in your header. Let them know, I prefer she, her, and hers. There is no bad way to let them know what your pronouns are. You want to let them know so that way it's no awkwardness or confusion when you do get into that Zoom setting. Use the preferred name that you want to be called. These employers know what they're doing when they're partnering with Indie Pride and hosting a career fair for those in the LGBTQ plus community. So let them know. Be strong in your identity. There's nothing wrong with it whatsoever. Now, here's an example of a resume, and notice how your eyes flow about this resume example. Typically, you start at the name and then you go straight over to the left. We've got nice sections. We've got headers. They're bolded. And skimming down, I can see the different titles that Gemma has held. I can see the different companies that she's worked for. And then going into her skills right in the middle of the page. They're all bullet pointed, very easy to read, digestible bites of information that as a recruiter, in 7.4 seconds, I would feel comfortable passing Gemma's resume on for the next level of whatever the application process is for that position. Make sure you're making it easy for the recruiters to see just how awesome of a candidate that you are for these positions. Now, I promised a slide of attire with fabulous outfits, and I hope I do not disappoint with this one. Lots of different options for you to wear. Again, you are dressed from your head to the bottom of your feet for these interviews. There's no business casual from the neck to the waist. Dress down to the nines, and if anything, we know how to dress. Whether you feel more comfortable in a professional business pants suit, if you are a layer queen like I am, the fall is coming, I am embracing it. This is still an opportunity for you to show your professional personality, because if you show up in an outfit that you are uncomfortable in, your confidence comes down a little bit. And it also doesn't accurately portray you once you get the job. So be mindful about your attire and know that, again, these employers are wanting to engage and employ our community. Don't give them any shortcuts. Show up as who you are. Now, during the interview, you still want to arrive early. Yes, you are signing up for time slots with these employers. However, you're still in an interview setting. So 5 to 10 minutes early is okay. I would even say if you want to get in there at about 2 to 5 minutes, it's okay. Sometimes Zoom can be a little bit awkward in the start of meetings and interviews. So come in comfortable and know that you may have to jump right into that interview if you do arrive early and your interviewer is able to open up that Zoom room for you. Don't bring any gum, any beverages, any snacks. I know some people think that, well, you may have been offered water in a physical setting. However, it's very unnerving when you're in an interview and it's a virtual experience and all of a sudden there's a water bottle. And then you see the water bottle right up in front of their face. So keep little things like that in mind. Turning off your cell phone and any notifications that may come through on whatever device you're using is crucial. Don't just put it on vibrate, because even if the interviewer is talking and you aren't saying anything, you're sitting there actively listening. If your phone or something around you vibrates, you still light up. You can still be spotlighted, which you're going to be spotlighted with an embarrassing, awkward face. We're saving you the drama. Make sure that you're answering the questions. And if you attended the session before this one, Ashley went through the STAR method. STAR is an acronym because, again, everyone loves acronyms. STAR stands for situation, task, action, and result. Now, I like to give my bullet point example and tie it into the STAR method, because if you are writing out your bullet points with those 3 parts, what you did, why you did it, and either who you did it for or the results, your STAR method comes even easier when you're saying your answers out loud, because you're following that bullet point, you're following that thought process. And remember, this is a conversation. The interviewer is a person. They're not this robot that's going to give you red marks or red ticks. They make mistakes. They stumble over their words. It is a human experience. It is a conversation. And just as much as they are interested in learning if you are the right candidate for this job, for this position in this company, you ought to be making sure that they are the right employer for you, that they have the right values, that they have the right mission, that they're serving the people that you want to serve. So just as much skin in the game as you feel they have when they're asking you questions, when it's your turn to ask those questions, make sure you're just as engaged so that you know that this is really a good fit for you. Now we're here. Ready, set, hello. Your camera's on. Your lighting's great. You set up your professional but personality-based background setting. And it's the first 30 seconds. Crucial, crucial, crucial time. Introduce yourself with a smile and with an elevator pitch. If you don't know what an elevator pitch is, I have the formula down here at the bottom. But before you even begin to speak, it's all about your body language. Remember, your goal is to get an interview. It's to get that fast track into the position. It's to get to that second part. Let them know that you're interested. Be engaged. I read an article earlier this week that said, if you lean forward, tilt your head down, and put a thumb underneath your chin and a pointer finger on the front of your chin, you look very insightful, as if you're very engaged. And as I'm doing it now and I'm peeking over at myself, I see that I do look very engaged with what I'm saying. I want to hear more. Body language and nonverbal cues are so, so important in the virtual world. You want to sit up straight, shoulders square. I like to do the model, throw down on the shoulders and then toss them back. Still very relaxed. I'm not standing up very shrewd or anything, but I'm alert. I'm waiting for the question. I'm eager to answer the question. Try not to touch your face a lot. If you've got glasses, I've got in my contacts today. Pro tip, if you have contacts, just wear them. It cuts down on how much you're interacting with the part of your face and the part of your screen that they're going to see the most. Talking with your hands gets really distracting. So try to keep any of your gestures low. And that's an advantage of virtual space and interviewing. If I'm fidgeting or if I'm wringing my hands underneath the table because I'm so nervous, they're none the wiser. They're none the wiser so long as I stay alert and relaxed up top. And another human pro tip, look into the camera. Instead of looking at yourself, look dead into your camera because it feels that you're looking right at them on their virtual experience. Now, if you're like me and you can't stop looking at yourself, if you're ever on video, Zoom has a feature for that. You can hide your personal video so that way you don't get distracted with what you're doing, if you're moving your hands, how your background looks. You can take yourself completely off the screen so that way you're focused and attentive on your interview. Now, I promised I'd go into that elevator pitch. First name, you can either do first name or full name depending on how you came into the Zoom room. You want to be very conscious of not repeating yourself too much. If you've already said your name, don't say your name again in the elevator pitch because it's redundant. You've already said it. It becomes repetitive after a while. After you say your name, first or full, go into what you're currently doing. If you're a student, go into what your major is and what school you're attending. If you're a professional already, go into what your title is at your current company and let them know where you are. Lastly, go into what you're looking for and or why you scheduled this appointment. So are you looking for an internship? Are you looking for a job? Or are you just looking for information more about this position or this company? So your turn. This is absolutely interactive. Coming to Indy Pride's events for a career support series, you ought to be coming with a notebook and a pen, or at least your phone out so that you can take some good notes. Take some time now to write down your elevator pitch. Before you go into your interviews, practice it out loud a couple of times before your sessions. If I were to have an elevator pitch going into one of our sessions for the career fair on the 6th, I would say, my name is Rias-Thompson. I am a career consultant for the School of Liberal Arts at IUPUI, and I'm here to get information about how I can transition my skills and experience from being a career consultant into whatever job position that I'm in this room talking with this recruiter about. The elevator pitch is something that can be very, very intimidating if you don't already have a plan for it. And so can the first question that they ask you. And you want to start off on the right foot because every Everyone dreads the question, so tell me about yourself. Immediately, minds are blank. You are the most boring person ever. Have you ever even experienced life? Have you been outside of your walls? You have, and you have a couple of different pieces that you can throw in there. You can talk about your education, your work experience, or projects at work that are relevant to the position that you're here for. You can talk about extracurricular activities so long as they're appropriate. And you can absolutely go into your career interests and goals. The example that I have down is after what I presume would be me saying my elevator pitch, coming into the Zoom interview room and going into the tell me about yourself answer. I would say something along the lines of I am a 2016 graduate of IUPUI, where I received my Bachelor of Arts in Communication Studies. I'm currently completing my master's degree in marriage counseling at IWU. And when I'm not working, I am co-hosting a podcast with my wife about healthy same-sex marriage practices. Most everything that I do day to day is pushing me closer and closer to being a licensed marriage counselor. This gives a more well-rounded view of you. Goes into your education. It goes into what you're currently doing. Goes into your appropriate after work hour activities. And if you know what your VIPs are, those values, interests, personality, and skills, everything that you do ought to be aligned to the common goal of getting you where you want to be. So now it's done. 15 minutes of fame is up. The cameras have stopped recording. This is the follow-up. You want to reach out to those contacts. Utilize LinkedIn. We're in a digital space, so using LinkedIn could open up doors to cultivate an ongoing professional relationship. If when you're in a session with an employer, you notice that they speak impeccably and they have public speaking as one of their skills, endorse them. Endorsements on LinkedIn go a really, really long way. You can also send a thank you email or, my personal favorite, a handwritten note. Now, during current conditions, it may not be the safest thing to do, but sending a thank you note, whether it's email or in person, goes a long way to show what your character is as a candidate and as a person. Because sometimes you don't get the position that you originally interviewed for, but if your follow-up is on point and it is genuine and you really would love to work for this company, they may have a position that pays even more, gives you more of a title, gives you more experience and exposure in your field. So don't underestimate the power of a thank you note, whether it's email or handwritten. It goes a long way. And then you want to follow up and apply to that position however they told you to do so. Make sure that you are going through and keeping up with all of the promises that you made, whether that was to follow up, anything that you said during that conversation. Make sure that you're making a note of it so that you can follow the directions as you said and apply correctly to those positions. And then lastly, you do want to keep that self-talk and self-thoughts positive. So get back into those power poses. Start saying those affirmations again, because after an interview and you don't hear back for a day or two, or they let you know they're going to follow up for a week, just like any normal person, you're racking your brain, wondering if you said the right things. Oh my gosh, are they going to call? Stay curious. What if I did a great job? What if I am the best candidate for this position? And you are, if you follow our tips and keep going with Indy Pride's Career Support Series, you're going to be the best candidate for all of the jobs that you apply for. And you want to remember, every contact is a part of that recruiting process, whether it's your social media, your voicemail greeting, you see them walking down the street, even though half of their face is covered with the mask, they're watching you. They remember that face. So make sure that you are just as polite, make sure that you are just as authentic and genuine as you were in that virtual space during that interview as you are whenever or however you are contacted and or interact with that recruiter from here on out. Now I will pass it over to Shelly, and she's going to go through some of the queer resources that she's gathered for you all.
Yeah, thank you, India. That was so much great information. And just like India said, these employers are not just interviewing you are going to be interviewing them to some extent, because you want to make sure that you fall into a place that is going to embrace you for the complete person that you are. So the CAS model is something that I wanted to make sure that everyone was aware of. Not everybody is fully out in themselves in whatever form that may take. Some people are still trying to figure out, are they or aren't they LGBTQ plus? So sometimes it's okay to not reveal all of those pieces of yourself if you yourself are not comfortable with that. I just wanted to make sure that everyone knew that, it's more like a continuum of outness. Some people are, very aware of where they are in this spectrum and want to make sure that everyone around them knows that they are LGBTQ plus. So I would just want you to be aware of this model here. If we go to the next slide. So up until this past summer, it was legal to fire people for being gay in 29 different states, including the state of Indiana. So again, another point, just wanted to make sure that you all know that even though it now is illegal to fire people who are LGBTQ plus, thank you, Supreme Court, I want you to know that some of those biases are still going to exist. And so you should be careful about deciding what companies you want to interview for. One of the greatest resources we wanted to share with you today is the resource that the Human Rights Campaign puts out. It's called the Corporate Equality Index. And what happens with this is the HRC goes and they rank companies on a variety of things. They want to see, does the company have a formal statement about how they embrace diversity? Do they have benefits that are specific to underrepresented populations? Do they offer benefits for people to have surgeries? Do they offer benefits for same-sex partners? Those types of things. Do they have resource groups available for their minority employees? I know that at IUPUI we have 7 different resource groups, and that's a very important part of why I chose to work there, because I knew that they were highly diverse and welcoming of diverse people. And then the fourth thing that they look at is public commitment. So are they, outright saying we support LGBTQ plus people? So they get points based on all of those categories, but then they also get points taken away if they've had some sort of a scandal or they have done something very publicly that is discriminatory. If we go to the next slide, you can see that the HRC puts this out in a very nice format. So you can see along the left-hand side, the employers that we screenshotted here. You can see where they're headquartered. And then you can see for each of the different categories, how many, how did they rank in that scale? If you go over to the far right, you can see which companies were Fortune 1000s. And you can also see where did they rank in the past year. So I would check out the HRC Corporate Equality Index if you are trying to decide if a company is right for you or not. If we go to the next slide, we'll see a little bit about some other organizations within the state of Indiana that you can kind of gut check with to see if the employers are going to be welcoming. One of those is the Indy Rainbow Chamber. So this is an organization that businesses join when for a lot of reasons, but they have monthly mixers. Well, they used to pre-COVID. Now they have a very robust newsletter that you can follow. And they often will host guest speakers that talk about, business things or, career related topics. So look to see if the company is a part of the Indy Rainbow Chamber. Another organization that is great to be aligned with is Out and Equal. This organization partners with Fortune 1000 companies, including Lilly and Cummins, Salesforce, RCI, Covance, Anthem, all of these organizations that are headquartered right here in Indianapolis. And these this organization does a great job. They actually have a job board that you can look at, and companies who are looking for LGBTQ plus individuals will post their jobs to the Out and Equal website. So make sure that you check that resource out as well. And then just another plug for the career fair. This is going to be a great place to find employers who are looking for LGBTQ plus individuals to work there. The people who come to this event are specifically looking for diverse candidates. So you can just as India said earlier, sorry, we got a helicopter going over. Just as India said earlier, you can pretty much guarantee that the organizations that are going to be at this career fair are going to be specifically looking for diverse candidates. There are some things that you're going to want to do to make sure that they actually are companies who want diverse candidates. So like India was saying, asking about environment in this day and age, you want to make sure that the environment is good, and you want to make sure that you're checking them on the HRC index to see if they say if they're as good as they say they are. So this kind of concludes our presentation. We talked about, resumes and how they should be one page, how they should be concise, how you should try to use bullet points whenever possible instead of big, long sentences and paragraphs. We talked about the career fair and some of those logistics, how you need to sign up in advance. You need to make sure and research the companies before you go to those events. You need to make sure that your tech is up to par and that your lighting is good and that you dress appropriately. Talked a little bit about what to say when you're talking to those people and how to answer some of their questions. Make sure that you come in with your power poses and that you are practicing your elevator pitch, because those first 30 seconds really are very important. And then we ended with some information about how do you know if a company truly is inclusive, and how do you kind of research some of those things. Right now, we would be more than happy to take your questions. I love to take questions from audience members. I love to hear what you're thinking. I love to hear what is maybe making you anxious about the career search process, because, India and I have dedicated our career lives to helping people find, places to work. And so we've heard a lot of different questions, but we would love to hear yours if you would like to share. India, anything else you want to make sure the audience knows about?
Yes, before some of those questions start to roll in, as I was marketing our event with the students that I met with today, one of the students kind of hummed back the session and asked very delicately, how do you ask in an interview if they are LGBTQ plus friendly without saying, are you LGBTQ plus friendly?
Right.
And when you began to talk about the affinity councils, I said, oh, well, that is a great way to ask that question. And that is the advice that I gave that student. I said, there's very professional ways for you to bring about that conversation, depending on your level of outness and your comfortability with being out at work. You can ask about affinity groups, or what communities do you all support that are local, and see what their answers are. Ask them about the population that they serve and really dive deep into it, because again, just as much as these companies are asking you these questions to see if you're a great fit, ask them questions. And I know this is something that professionally I've had conversations with colleagues about, wondering, well, why is my sexual orientation something that is important during an interview, especially a 15-minute interview, and they don't understand that they have a non-disclosure privilege that, oh, well, this is seen as the norm, so everyone's just going with it. But for us that are a part of different communities where it's not that easy, it's important to know that I'm not only going to be accepted by you as the recruiter, but as an organization. So the resources that were shared in the PowerPoint in the presentation, really use those so that you can see which companies are supporting that. And even though you can see a company in their rankings with the HRC or with one of the other resources that we've listed, it is still your due diligence. It is still up to you to go in there and dig deeper. Okay, yes, I noticed that you had this score on the HRC. I'm wondering, how did you all get that? I came by this information during one of these sessions, and I was just curious to see how you all got to that. What initiatives are you all taking?
I think that's all very good information. And, tomorrow we're going to be giving a panel conversation. So I think there are 4 of us going to be on that panel, maybe 5, I'm not really sure. And we're going to be taking people's questions about anything. So if you're going to be around tomorrow night, we hope that you will join us for that. And then after the panel presentation, there's going to be another presentation given by someone from the EEOC. If you're not familiar with those people, it's the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, I think is what it stands for. And what they do is they make sure that organizations are following rules related to equal employment. And so I think there's going to be a lot of really good information tomorrow night on that. So, well, I don't think that there's any questions coming through. India, I think our contact information is listed next. Is that right? In the next slide? Indy and I are both willing to help people. We're very passionate about this work, and we want to make sure that our LGBTQ plus brothers and sisters are taken care of. Unemployment for LGBTQ plus people is higher. I guess it's the opposite, isn't it? Right? The more LGBTQ plus people are unemployed than non-LGBTQ plus people. And so we feel very passionate about making sure that we help our people as much as possible. And if you want help with anything, a resume review, a mock interview, a pep talk on how to do a power pose, please reach out to either one of us, and we would be more than happy to walk you through that process. We hope everybody has a good night, and we look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Goodbye.
Goodbye. Thanks for joining us.